Welcome again to another segment of the Grassy Knoll on this September 18th, 2006. And we have with us, back by popular demand, and rightfully so, Neal. Al was with us twice, probably over a month ago. He's back now for 3 appearances this week. And so, Al, it's good to hear from you, and welcome back to the Grassy Knoll.
Glad to be here, and I'm very excited about the program.
All right, now, this is something that's pretty murky for me. We're going to get into something that I guess you could call advanced Bible mathematics. Some people might call it Bible codes. How do you view it?
In 1997, Keith, Bible codes begin to hit mainstream. I'm holding some enlarged copies from Time and Newsweek. In June the 9th of 97, the Bible code was up in the corner saying prophetic or preposterous, and it's right here by the Paula Jones case on the cover. And of course, they ran 2 pages, Time running simultaneously, just called it Deciphering God's Plan. So there were several books on the Bible codes that began to appear. Michael Drosden's book ran consecutively for weeks as a bestseller on the New York Times. And, you know, I was intrigued like many other people. And I got the books and read them. And their so-called codes were unknown to me. And Michael Drosden had a claim to fame. Did you ever read these books, or you surely you heard about them? Yes, Keith?
I've not read them, no.
You haven't read them? His claim to fame was that he had predicted Itzhak Rabin's death, which was an assassination in 1995, as all the world press, of course, reported it at that time. The thing about the Bible codes, they were basically designed around what was known as ELS, or equal letter spacing. And I was intrigued, so I sent to a Jewish publishing house and obtained the software where you could load into your computer. And what you would do is, if you were searching in a certain place, you could tell the computer where to search, and you would take the letters in the Bible. They were putting them in a block, and they were saying, okay, so many spaces, like every 25 spaces will look for a word. And of course, he had some interesting finds, but when you first looked at it, it was sort of sensational. But as the sensation wore off and you began to look at it logically, I could see some holes in their theory. And I've been a Bible student for 40 years, and one day I gave this so-called equal letter spacing codes on the computer, I gave it a test where I already had the answers. And when it failed, I put the disk up. I've never used it since. That's my experience with the Bible codes. Through the years, there have been many books written on Bible mathematics. The best book that keeps being republished was written 100 years ago, and it was written by Bullinger, and people can still pick it up at a Bible bookstore. It's called Number in Scripture. Okay, this is all people knew for a long time, Keith. This is all they knew, and from time to time someone would write a book and say, okay, the number 40 means this in the Bible, the number 7 means this number means that. And of course it was always just rehash. So, needless to say, I didn't know I was going to be involved with finding the higher mathematics in the Bible. I was contracted to speak for an organization on the subliminal New World Order mind control, which of course is on Google if people want to see it. And all they have to do is get up www.google.com, punch the video selection, then do a search for Al Neal. They'll also find this Bible code, so-called. And let me see if I can get your interest. All of this sounds very flat and very religious. Keith, I'm not a religious person.
You're a spiritual person.
I like that contrast between the word spiritual and religiosity. And I don't have a cross around my neck. I don't have religious pictures on the wall. And, of course, Michael Drosnin himself, who became very rich over his books, he was an AP writer. When people did some research on the man himself, he was an atheist. And he had some very strange beliefs about God and flying saucers, or things in the Bible and flying saucers, I would say. And, of course, this is some far-out New Age theories. And so when I was looking at the whole thing, I said, I see what he's capitalized on. Mainstream people in America respect the Bible as a book. Most of them believe that it is supernatural. No, very few people have ever attempted to prove that. And, of course, by saying there were secret codes in there, it caught people's interest, and that's exactly why it became a New York Times bestseller for weeks. Okay, here's a different way I've gone about it. I always knew there had to be some kind of internal mechanism within the Bible itself that would make the book open up, actually make it become self-defining instead of just a book that's constantly debated between major religions, denominations. I mean, the Bible's the most read book, the most quoted book, the most argued over book in the world. I mean, how many different churches are in your area where you live?
More than you can count on your hands and feet.
Well, that's exactly right. You'd have to have a pocket calculator. And if you went to visit there on Sunday, each one would tell you they're the only one that's real, and they're the right one, and they're the true one. Well, if there's 500 different churches in a metropolitan area, and they all believe something different, even if one was right, the other 499 are in the dark. So let's jump into Bible mathematics.
Let me stop you right there for a second now, because you just said something that I wish you would elaborate on just a bit more, and whether it's the Holy Spirit or whatever, just say it. You had just mentioned that you knew, and I would put "knew" in quotations. You always knew there was an internal mechanism in the Bible. How did you, quote, know that?
After studying it for 40 years, I tried to study it the way other people did. When I was a teenager, I got a job at a Bible bookstore back when Bible bookstores really had a lot of old commentaries that were verse by verse and so forth. Every guy that was on the radio offered a book. I ordered it. You know, I switched 3 or 4 churches trying to find the answers. What I mean answers, I'm looking for an answer that rings with weight. It deals with logic and reasoning, and most people could say, that's it. Now, my mother was a college professor at West Virginia University, and she had taught me how to study in school. I knew how to make good grades in school, so when I was 17, when I began to read the Bible, I applied that same logic and reasoning to this book. And when I began to ask preachers, my preacher, the preacher down the street, I'd ask them simple questions. I didn't have the answers, but when I asked them, Keith, their answers didn't ring well. Or they would give you a real flimsy excuse about a verse, or, well, that's not important. And I said, no, this isn't it. I turned down a college education at 17. All the money was in the bank for all 4 years. I told my parents I would not attend. They said, why? I said, because they don't have the answers at the university. My mother said, well, I guess you think at 17 you have the answers. I said, no, but I'm going to go find them. And they're in this book somewhere. Now, it is quoted that Sir Isaac Newton made a certain statement. Upon researching, I found out that Sir Isaac Newton did not make the statement, but men studying his life have sort of coined the phrase that Sir Isaac Newton always looked for a key that would open up the Scripture, and he never found it. Even though he has written commentaries on various parts in the Bible, he was very intrigued himself with Scripture. But there is a key, and the key deals with numbers, and the key deals with logic. And here's my whole point. Your question originally was, how did you know that it was in there? Because reading it, anyone who's ever read it for any given amount of time begins to see that it's more complex than meets the eye. I have crisscrossed the country in meetings and asked this simple question, Keith. For meetings of 25 people or 250 people, I'll begin a meeting and say, how many people in this room have read the Bible 10 times? You're absolutely sure. Don't tell me a lie. Raise your hand. And I begin counting down. 9, 8, 7, 6. Keith, why didn't I start at 100 or 200 times? Because I would have been counting down with no one raising their hand.
There you go.
Here's a book that people want to know things about. Here's a book they argue about, but no one reads it. Mm-hmm. And so I've done this test. I found 3 people in the United States in all my travels who'd read it over 10 times. So what I decided to do was take a look at it and pursue it on the avenue of knowledge where other things have had breakthroughs. I mean, talk to me. Are there breakthroughs in genetic engineering?
Of course.
Are there breakthroughs in space flight powered by xenon gas with ion propulsion? I mean, you name the avenue, there have been breakthroughs. Where are the breakthroughs on deciphering the world's most complex book? There haven't been any. Mm-hmm. And everyone jumped at the thought that there were supernatural codes in the Bible. If I call it a religious roulette wheel, you could take a roulette wheel in Las Vegas and put Hebrew letters on them, and you could spin it, and you could get as much sense as you can out of the so-called equal letter spacing codes. And 90%, 95% of all the books out there, if they say Bible code, that's all it is. I have discarded them. Can we jump in and tell what the real way is to find what's in the Scripture?
You're going to tell us?
Everything in the universe that God ever created has an order to it. Mm-hmm. Women give gestation at a certain amount of time. A rabbit gives gestation at a certain time. So does a cow. So does a horse. Unknown to the people that think all of us crawled out of the swamp, there's a design order to it. Everything in this universe, if you jump into the chemical elements, no one is going to call in or email and say, I disagree, argon is not element 18. No one in their right mind is going to send you a Hotmail address line today and say germanium is not element 32, palladium is not 46, neodymium is not 60. You see, it's something that cannot be debated. These elements that we have on the element chart, there is a numerical order to them. There's a numerical order to anything. Okay, everything that we express that's not verbal, we only use letters and numbers. Mm-hmm. There isn't any other way to express things. Now, unknown to the people who have been reading the Bible, that is the key. Now, no one ever took time to start working with junior high-level mathematics in the Bible. What did I do, Keith? It was from inspiration. Mm-hmm. I was not at a desk researching. I was walking, and all of a sudden it hit me like a bolt out of the blue. I know how to prove the Bible is a supernatural book.
Al, can I ask you a question there?
Go.
I know I've heard this in times gone by, but I'm just curious whether or not in your travels, and because you speak to the subject, perhaps this might have happened to you. If it hasn't, fine.
Go.
But have you ever run into a mathematician who went so deep that he or she had to realize that this whole world, everything on, including human beings, everything, has a structure that couldn't have happened in a random process, and therefore, perhaps, understood that there was a Lord.
There was a creator.
That's right. Well, they all say creator at times.
Right.
We're talking about, obviously, Yahweh.
I picked up a book a few years ago written by mainstream scientists who were saying something very close to this, and saying in their separate fields that's why they believed in a supreme being and a creator and a designer. Someone was supposed to send me an audio tape this past week about a doctor and a scientist who was discussing some of these number patterns, dealing again with gestation. I mean, we're talking from plants to animals when we're talking the elements. Yes, they're out there. If anyone wants to go on a computer and begin to look, not all the scientists are into evolution. Not all of them are atheists. There's quite a number who are convinced after what they've looked at in science So I do agree with you. Yes, I haven't met those people personally. I think if they could get a hold of what we're trying to say here, it's a little hard to get it started. But by day 3, I'll be making statements on this program that will be the most shocking statements that have ever been made about the Bible in 3,000 some years, and I can back them up. But we have to start with some type of basic scheme, which can be put on a spreadsheet or on paper. Of course, we have those to show where we're coming from. It's a progressive revelation. Watch this. I started by counting the chapters in the Bible, and of course I counted them in succession. I started adding them together. Genesis has 50 chapters. Exodus has 40. And so by the time you get to Exodus 40, you're in chapter 90. I started to put this number pattern from Genesis to Revelation. Now, the religious people, Keith, immediately find fault in everything. They have an answer for everything. They're not correct, but they always have an answer for everything. And, of course, I've heard all the opposition. I've had people jump up and say, well, the chapters weren't in there in the beginning. And my answer to that is, it's obvious you have never read the Bible for any length of time. The chapter numbers are added where the subject matter changes abruptly. The Frenchman put the chapters in the 1500s. It was not a new concept. In the 2nd and 3rd century, some people had numbered the chapters in succession. So this is where I began. I said, let's look at how this thing is numbered, because we have to use numbers to find order. If we had 100 people in a room and I said, okay, we're going to have a banquet and we're going to let the oldest person get served first out of respect, I mean, we've got to have some kind of order. So I began to write these numbers down. And later I was surprised to find out from friends around the country that this is not a new concept. A lady in Nebraska met me at one of my meetings. She says, look here, here's a family Bible that I got from the dollar store. It's brand new. All the chapters are numbered in succession at the top of the page. So this is not a new concept, but no one knew no one took the time to study it. I'm going to use this word freely, even if it does get you some bad emails, scientifically. Okay, watch me begin to give you some numbers. There are 929 chapters in the Old Testament. There's another 260 in the New. And so what did I do with this? I have a Young's Concordance. Anyone who's ever read the Bible who's looking for a word or a verse always gets a concordance. Most people use Strong's. I've always used a Young's for 40 years. In the back of Young's, there are lexicons to the Hebrew and to the Greek language. The number one book for 100 years until this research came along was, of course, Numbers in Scripture by Bullinger. In Bullinger's book, he took the Hebrew letters and gave their number values, and the Greek letters and gave their number values. The hyper-religious will get upset the further we go along. Well, that's numerology. What kind of numerology are you talking about? The profane numerology that's in the New Age section, this has nothing to do with it. It is numbers. It is not numerology as is taught in fortune telling and so forth.
But I mean,
go ahead.
I mean, is it wrong? I mean, I always refer to that numerology as a scriptural thing. It can be used for occult purposes, but it's very much there, I believe, for believers. You know, a different kind.
The subject is neutral. Would you agree with that, Keith?
Like many things, something can be neutral, but human beings can use it for ill or for good.
Right. I always use the analogy often about the bank robber who comes in with a pistol and tells the teller to give all the money.
Right.
And I ask people, I says, is the gun good or evil?
Exactly.
And people are very careful because they know I usually have loaded questions. And so they go, well, I don't know. I said, but the bank teller has the silent alarm on the foot, close to her foot on the floor, and when she steps on it, here come the police. Well, when the police come in the door before the bank robber leaves and they pull out their guns, are the guns good or evil, Keith?
That's right.
Isn't that right?
Mm-hmm.
So what is a number? Are we going to say numbers are good or evil?
That's right.
And is a study of numbers good or evil? The whole point is, where is it? What is the motive and objective of all of it, correct?
Right.
I'm not doing somebody's fortune to make money. I'm showing that there is a God who understands higher mathematics that's even in the Matrix movies. Once I began to get these number patterns down on the chapters, what I did was go to Hebrew words for 2,000 years. They have coins 2,000 years old where the Hebrew letters were used for the numbers, so every letter had a number value. All I did was believe that there's nothing in this world by chance or circumstance, with God knowing all and directing all. So all I did was take the Hebrew words, substitute the number for each letter, and then add up those letters to get a sum for each word. But then, guess what I did with this number I came up with? I think you've seen some of the video, haven't you, Keith?
Yes, I have.
What did I do once I got the numerical value of a word from the Old Testament? Do you remember?
You applied it to letters.
Well, I did the letters.
Right, and
anyone can. Listen, if people think this is foreign, I have a 15-pound library edition of Webster's Dictionary in my study. It's handed down from my mother. It's a 1966 edition. On one page in this dictionary, it gives you the Greek alphabet with the numerical equivalents of every Greek letter. This has been known for a long time. All I did was begin to run the secret crypts and the secret ciphers. What I did was, it was a flash of inspiration, but I went to prove it by logic. Okay, if we have a word, and it's in the Bible, and it has a value, I'm saying God, the great creator of everything, also has order in his entire universe. There has to be order in this word. So what I would do was take the word, once I had the value, and I would go to the chapter number that was the same number to find out if it was in there. It sounds like a theory at first, but after running hundreds and hundreds of words, all of a sudden it is not a theory, it is a fact. Can I give a simple example in case people are listening and they're confused? Can I do that, Keith?
Yeah, I think you better, especially for me.
For you? Okay. I'm not a linguist. I'm not fluent in other languages. But I have good logic and reasoning capabilities. People who have used drugs, alcohol, today they have lost their ability to do simple logic. Would you agree with that, Keith?
Yeah.
That's why society is such a mess. So with simple logic, I just went to the concordance. At first, I was just picking out words at random to try this out. I would pick a word, go to the Hebrew. The letters are right there in the back of Young's Concordance in the lexicon. All I would do was switch the letters to numbers, add them up. Watch. Here's a Hebrew word for rod, R-O-D. I'm not going to give the Hebrew word. How many people listening even speak Hebrew? But in the back of the concordance, it has it spelled out. Here's 3 different Hebrew letters. All I did was substitute their number values, which was a 40, a 9, and a 5. So when I added these up, I got 54. Okay, now what do I have? I have the number value for the Hebrew word 54. What am I going to do with it? I'm going to prove that this Bible has more supernatural design in it than anyone has ever given it credit for.
All right, let me take a guess here, and I don't want to hunt things up for you, but if you said 54, right?
Right. What am I going to do with this 54?
All right, would that then take you into Exodus 4?
Exodus 4, that's correct. Right. I'm going to count. There were different writers that wrote the books of the Bible, but it says in the New Testament, for those of us who believe it, that they were all inspired by the Spirit. Some people debate that. Some people believe it. But I'm looking for proof to contend with those who don't believe. You're correct. There's 50 chapters in Genesis. The 54th chapter of an authorized Bible is Exodus 4. Can I read just a couple verses?
By all means.
Not only is rod in this chapter, This is probably the most famous part in the Bible about a rod, and even people that don't read the Bible, even people that go to the movies will remember the scene. Moses said he was afraid to go down into Egypt to deliver them because they wouldn't listen to him. I'm going to read to you verse 2 from the 54th chapter of the Bible. And the Lord said unto him, What is that in thine hand? And he said, A rod, R-O-D. And he said, Cast it on the ground, and everyone knows the story. It became a serpent. Moses, he fled from the serpent. He goes back. He grabs it by the tail. Verse 4, he put forth his hand and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand. My question to anyone listening, is this some kind of quantum coincidence? Because here's rod. Its number is 54. I go to chapter 54 because he is a God of order. He's got order in the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom. He's got it in the mineral kingdom. He's got it in the galaxies. And he, of course, would have to have it in any book he designed. Not only is rod in there, it becomes the important subject matter that begins this chapter.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, whether that worked out to a certain degree because it was seminal to that particular chapter. Mm-hmm. Now, this is going down a side street, but it also hit me too that I think you see a demonic perversion of that story and that symbology when you take a look at the symbol for the AMA, which is snake entwined around a crucifix.
Well, right. But before anyone ever makes great strides in sorting out knowledge, they will always have to come to the fact, for everything that's real, there is a counterfeit.
Right.
And people don't counterfeit money because it's useless.
Because it's counterfeit. It's fake to begin with.
I mean, it has to have some value. And I'm going to say this on the air because I'm already on there. And, of course, you've already agreed for 3 days. I guess you can bump me off. But that's why I believe the Bible's the most counterfeited book in the world. Because the real one has some value. But we'll stay off of that issue. Now, can I do this, Keith? I gave an example of finding the numerical value of a word and going to the chapter. Do you know what that proves? Absolutely nothing, because I only gave one example. Will you allow me to pick another one?
I hope so.
Okay, because when you go to court, and in the Bible and on Judgment Day, it will take more than one witness to prove anything. So, when I first found this, you can imagine how surprised I was taking a word, getting its number, racing to the chapter, and then finding it there, because I knew my inspiration that had hit me walking was correct. I'm going to take a simple Hebrew word. It actually only has 2 letters written in the Hebrew. When it's translated, it becomes 2 whole English words. But this can be found in the concordance, and there's a little word that's spelled with 2 Hebrew letters, the P and the Z. Of course, they're not. The letters have names. They're not pronounced P and Z. But the P, which is has a value of 80, and the Z has a value of 7. So when we add them together, we get 87. But the English words it's translated to are pure gold. Now, you just told me where to go into Exodus 4 with 54. So where am I going to go looking for a Hebrew word that has a value of 87?
Oh, you're killing me. We'll say... wait, hold on. Don't tell me.
Exodus if you need that help. You'll go to...
Deuteronomy?
No, listen to me. We're going to chapter 87.
Yeah.
There are 90 chapters in Exodus.
You just said that, right.
Yeah, so now we're going to take the 50 chapters out of Genesis. In my Exodus 37, over my Bible chapter, I have marked the 87th chapter of the Bible. So I'm looking for 2 English words, and they're pure gold. Okay, I'm not going to read from this chapter. I'm going to tell you what verses in Exodus 37 contain the words pure gold. Exodus 37 chapter, the 87th chapter in the Bible. Verse 2, pure gold. Verse 6, pure gold. Verse 11, pure gold. Verse 16, pure gold. Verse 17, pure gold. Verse 22, pure gold. Verse 23, pure gold. Verse 24, pure gold. Verse 26, pure gold. Have I made my point?
Yes, you have.
Now, the words just aren't in there. The chapter is revolving around this word, or these two words, because that's the order of things. And I don't need to give another 190 examples. It's posted on Google if someone wants to watch it for a couple hours. I started in Genesis and periodically took examples, and I run them all the way through the Bible. And some of them become extremely, they become startling. They become exciting because of the content. This is where I began with this so-called, I called it the infinity code. I didn't know what else to call it. The word infinite is in Psalm 147, and little did I know there's no end to it. We are probably 100 times further along, possibly 1,000 times deeper than when we began, and that was 1998.
While we're here, we've reached this bottom of the hour. Why don't you tell folks how they can, well, one, you've got the video that's up there now. Let's talk about that. And also, you said emails perhaps by which people can ask you for the Excel files or however spreadsheets that you have this information in.
If they want to see some examples from a conference in 99, taking these different words, pulling them up, showing their number values, actually even showing the Hebrew letters and going to the chapters. Again, all you have to do is go to www.google.com, and when you go there, pick the video, hit select the video, and then of course you're going to have to do a search for Al Neal, A-L-N-E-A-L, the New World Order. Mind control video will come up, which we discussed on this show last June 29th and 30th. But what we're talking about, the Bible code, someone has had it posted. I think it was someone in Japan had it put up just last week. It's in 2 parts, about 50 minutes apiece. If you're not sure you're interested or you're extremely busy, there's also a 13-minute segment up. Now, if someone wants to email me, you can email me at OneMrA. You write it out, O-N-E-M-R-A, the @ sign with the spiral, and of course I'm at AOL.com. That's OneMrA at AOL.com. If there's someone out there whose religious hair is all ruffled up like a dog about to attack, don't send me an email. My wife will delete it before I read it. If there's someone genuinely looking for answers, you drop me a line. We send information in the mail. We never charge if someone is really wanting to pursue this. And it goes so far and so deep, I'm not sure you're going to be ready for it by Thursday, Keith.
Well, based on my answers thus far, you're probably right. That's why I sat in the back of the class in math, you know what I mean?
Well,
and hunkered down.
It'll go as deep as you want to go in math. I have taught Bible studies by the square roots.
Oh, Lord.
But I took it to 3 students that I thought could handle it, and when I looked at their faces, I did the chapters by the square roots, key Bible numbers. And so when I looked at their faces, I said, okay, I don't think anyone processed it, and I don't want any copies of this tape made. I mean, they were running audio tape. And I said, I don't want any copies made. I don't want anything handed out to people. I've finally gone too far over people's heads. I thought it was simple. But we're not going to discuss that in the next 3 days. Do I need to try to pique some interest of what we may be talking about the next couple days and why people would want to listen patiently until we get there?
Were you posing a question just now?
Mm-hmm.
Rhetorically, I hope.
Should I just give an instant preview of some exciting things we will be talking about tomorrow and Thursday?
By all means.
When we get a little further along.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just finding words that are matched into a chapter. I mean, when I gave the lecture in 99, the organization I gave the lecture for kept the copyright. They put out a small book. I intentionally limited what I put in that book because they were just trying to make money. when I gave that lecture, the guy said, Al, I'm going to call you back in a couple months because as fast as you're figuring out things, you'll have a whole lot to say by then. Since I knew that money was his driving force, I intentionally made a point not to go back, even though I could have been on the speaker circuit and again flown to 40 or 50 cities to speak. Not long after that, we realized what we had done with the Hebrew and the Old, we could do with the Greek New Testament in the New.
I got to tell you, it's like I'm studying the back of the class trying to keep up with you, and it's tough, obviously, to split my limited faculties.
Okay,
but
what I'm saying, look, I'll make it as simple as grade school stuff. I went to the Greek words that are in the New Testament. They're all in the back of a concordance and a lexicon. Every letter has a value. We began to take the Greek words in the New Testament, substitute those in numbers, put those in numerical order, and we went to look to see if they were in their appropriate chapters in the New Testament. Now we've switched languages.
What is the letter Z in Hebrew? Is it Zion?
Well, it's usually pronounced Zayin.
Zayin, right?
Z-A-Y-I-N.
Mm-hmm.
And to anyone who's listening and wanting to know about Hebrew letters, just simply go to almost the exact center of your Bible at Psalm 119. All 22 Hebrew letters will be there. The names of the letters, and most Bibles actually draw the character or the hieroglyph. That's Psalm 119. Go ahead.
Well, I do have, I'll confess, a Strong's Concordance here. Mm-hmm. And I have it open to the Hebrew, what they call articulation, not necessarily lexicon, same thing.
Right.
There are two letters that you went over. I don't know if you want to do this at this time, and if not, no problem. Well, I think the 10th letter, Yod, mm-hmm. and also Tau, if we can do that later.
Okay.
Can we do that, or do you want to save that for a time when
what do you want me to say about those letters? Tell me.
Well, I think Yod has a very, very interesting connection, more so than perhaps the others, if I could say that.
Yes, you are correct.
And the Tau bears an awful resemblance to the Greek Tau.
Well, you're correct again.
All right. I found that most interesting, and like I said, I don't know if I'm jumping up ahead.
No, that's all right. What you're doing is looking in the filing cabinets of your head. Let's see, what do I know about Hebrew letters? And these are two very well-known letters. Let me answer your question indirectly. These 22 Hebrew letters have to be mastered before people begin on this code. My daughter taught herself Hebrew. My wife taught herself some basic Hebrew, just working on this code. When you begin to learn the letters, several appear similar in their design. All the letters have great significance. All the letters have names. All the names are also, you can usually go find the Hebrew word where that name came from. Okay? If we took the first 22 chapters of the Bible, if this great God who designed the human body, the galaxies, the neutrons, the protons, if he's writing this book by inspiration, what do you think is going to be in the first 22 chapters of the Bible in order? These 22 Hebrew letters.
Yeah.
And these letters and the words that begin with these letters and the meaning of these letters are going to be right there in front of people's eyes if they only had eyes to see. So I could digress for a moment and expound on these letters. I could expound on all 22, but it would take a lot of time. Mm-hmm. It would take lots of time. I've taught Bible studies that took 2 and 3 hours, just taking the 22 Hebrew letters from Psalm 119 and going over the first 22 chapters of the Bible. Every letter has major significance. Now, I didn't answer your question the way you wanted it, but I still try to work it in with the subject matter today. You made another statement there. You said this Hebrew letter for T is resembling the Greek letter for T, didn't you? Aren't you saying that?
Yes.
Okay. I had a chart made, and very few people are aware of this. One time I was reading a book on science, and they said all the scientists of the world most major scientists believe there was a master tongue at one time. For example, let's take the word mother in 150 languages and show how close they are to each other. Well, they almost told you the truth. Whether you call it Hebrew, which is from a man's name, Eber, in Genesis 11, or you call it Sinai Phoenician, you can take the alphabets and you can put them side by side from language to language, and you can follow these 22 letters straight across this chart. The Greeks had 27, 2 fell into disuse, but the first 22 letters in Greek are the exact same as the Hebrew, and you can go to German, you can go to many other languages. So that language that the whole world spoke before the Tower of Babel is the same as Hebrew. That's why you will see a similarity in letters from alphabet to alphabet. In a meeting in the near future, I plan to present this chart. I even saw a book, I didn't obtain it, at Borders, where one guy had studied the Egyptian hieroglyphics and said, hey, did anyone ever notice that I can match the hieroglyphs from Egypt to the 22 letters, the Hebrew alphabet? So it just depends on how intense Bible study is. But without covering all these avenues, what good, what purpose, what's the significance of the Bible numbers that I'm talking about? Keith, we got about 17 minutes. Let me see if I can stir up some interest in a great way. Bible codes appear on their own to have gendered a lot of interest. I'm holding I Spy magazine in my hand. This is volume 3, number 22 from 2004. It's a quarterly, and on the cover, it says the Bible Code, Pentagon Meeting on Armageddon. There's a whole section in here from I Spy magazine, which is well respected, about Michael Drosnin and being sent into the Pentagon, speaking in front of U.S. officials and generals. It's called An Extraordinary Pentagon Meeting. It's a key article. It runs several pages. Well, then if we have our respected or unrespected representatives in government, and we have generals discussing the Bible Code, I wonder what they would do with the real thing. Here's what I'm talking about. We didn't just start with the simple grade school stuff that had been overlooked of taking words, switching to numbers, and going to the chapters. That was just the beginning, Keith. One time in a hotel, actually it's a motel, it's a Best Western in North Carolina, things didn't go right in the meeting, and the next morning I was doing internal inspection, trying to figure out why things didn't click, and all of a sudden I had some more inspiration. And when the inspiration hit me, and I took a look in the Bible to see if it was true, I went to the counter up front, and I said, I'm not going to check out today. Here, take these $100 bills. I'm staying in this motel all week. I called my wife. I said, I'm not coming home. She goes, why? I said, I've had the next major revelation about what's in this Bible, and no one ever had a clue. Here, watch me tell something that's larger than anything in any seminary in the world. Listen to me. I took the chapters in the Old and the chapters in the New and began to read them one-on-one, Keith.
Well,
Genesis 1 to Matthew 1. Okay. Genesis 2 to Matthew 2. Okay. I'm reading them one-on-one. And you know what I found out after being in a motel for a week? They say the exact same thing. They have the same phrases, the same people. He gave you a second witness to whatever he said in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, but it was just slightly disguised so that the guy who has 3 PhDs and 2 THDs can't see it. So if I'm reading the Bible and I have a question about something that's in a chapter and I go, well, wonder what's meant here, I can go to the opposite testament by the same chapter number, and it will give more light on the subject. Is this of any interest, do you think?
Yeah. I also have a question. May I present that?
Go.
From what you were stating in the video, that you start with the alphabet. You start with letters.
That's correct.
From which you construct words.
Right.
All right. Now, I think you mentioned something about a latitude within that construct where these root letters will still hold. In other words, you could form different words, perhaps, but they still would be extensions of whatever arrangement you had of the letters. Am I stating that clearly?
Well, you are. What I'm trying to do is get some simple basics out. The basics are there's an order to things. Yes, we have these letters. Yes, they have meaning. Yes, they have number values. Yes, the chapters of the Bible are significant. They cannot be coincidence. It cannot be a coincidence what's in the 359th chapter of the Bible. I'm trying to stir up interest without expounding on it. It cannot be a coincidence what's in the 666th chapter. It cannot be a coincidence what's in the 863rd and so forth and so on. Now what I'm going to do from what you're saying is, then it gets more complex. As long as we keep the order of things, we can begin to overlay spreadsheets. I say spreadsheets because that's what people are most familiar with. Every chapter in my Bible, let's go quicker, I have a color over every chapter. I pulled them from the 7 colors of the rainbow in order off the spectrum because they all have a certain wavelength. You've never seen a rainbow with colors at different positions. The rainbow is in the book of Genesis. So in Genesis 1, I have red, I go orange, gold, I go yellow, I go green, I go blue, I go violet, I go purple, and I've got colors running all the way through the Bible in chapters. I have numbers over the chapters. Keith, I have Hebrew letters over all the chapters. Do you see what I'm doing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm running threads.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me go deeper and try to get people's interest for tomorrow and Thursday. As we begin to progress, everything in this Bible is a progressive revelation. The big surprises are in the last book. People were supposed to master the first 65 books before they got to the last one. Everything is progressive revelation, but it's all being proved by logic and lots of proof. And after we have that foundation and as we begin to build, it gets deeper and it gets deeper. You personally, I'm going to ask you a question that I already know the answer to. If there are 119 elements on the atomic element chart, give or take 2, I say that because 2 went in that were disannulled here a couple of years ago. Do you really believe, just you personally, Keith, do you believe God created all of these and had knowledge of how He made them?
Of course.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you another question. Do you believe the Bible per se was absolutely inspired by the same God that created everything? Do you believe that, Keith?
Absolutely.
Okay, now watch me overlay them. Okay, I'm going to take 119 elements, and I'm going to take the first 119 chapters in the Bible, and I'm going to write an element over every chapter, and they are in there. If that's not enough pace for people who are listening, I went to Matthew 1 and began to put the elements and wrote them in the next 119 chapters, which will take you to the book of Acts. Those elements are in those chapters. Watch me go deeper. I'll go to the book of Psalms. That's the 19th book in the Bible. It's the only book in the Bible where you could put all the elements in one book because there are 150 chapters in the book of Psalms. The first 119 chapters in the book of Psalms, I have an element written over them. Okay. Those elements are in those chapters. I prove it to Bible students who believe. There's not enough proof in the world for a skeptic. Did you know that, Keith?
No. I'm not one.
I can show you lithium in Genesis 3, or I can show you lithium in Matthew 3, or I can show you lithium, the third element, in Psalm 3. These are some of the things we can discuss in length tomorrow or even in the next 10 minutes if you need some examples. What I'm saying is we started with basic pieces of information that had never been looked at. We are dealing with numbers. We are doing it scientifically. I was under the belief. I started with belief, but then I go to left brain logic to prove that my beliefs are correct. You see what I'm saying?
Would you break down how to find the lithium?
Okay. You want me to show lithium in Matthew 3 over the air?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, watch. Once I figured out how it worked, I had my wife go to some books, and she has a 3-page chart, which I use in my meetings. And it is actually the etymology of each of the names of the elements as we now know them. And so, if you look in a dictionary and you look up lithium, it'll say Greek lithos from the word stone, Lithos. That's what the dictionary says. That's what an encyclopedia will say, and that's what will be repeated in a scientific journal. Not that the person studying lithium needs to know that, but they'll do it as an introduction with the history of the word. So, am I going to find the word lithium in Matthew 3? Well, you're not going to find it in plain English because there are things hidden in the Bible. Now, this is where some people get a sticking point. And they go, well, there's nothing hidden in the Bible. Watch this. The Greek word crypto or kryptos means hidden or secret. It is all throughout the New Testament. There are hidden things in the Bible. There are things hidden from Genesis to Revelation. So when I go to Matthew 3, I'm looking for lithium. I don't know where I'm going to find it, but it has to be there because this is a book which has all knowledge encrypted into it. So I don't know where I'm going to find it. It's at a different place in Revelation 3 than it is in Genesis 3. Sometimes I have to read the chapter 20 times. I'm looking for it. I don't know where it's going to show up. The word may show up. An exact description of it may show up. The use of this element may show up. So when I'm in Matthew 3, John the Baptist is talking to the religious people of his day. And he is scolding them. And he says, don't tell me you're the children of Abraham. He says, God is able of these stones. Would you like for me to spell that for you? Lithos.
Yeah, well, I found it. You ought to be proud of me.
Very good. So, you want to see what it's like to look for some of the more difficult ones. But you talk about excitement. Listen to me, Keith. I have never, ever used any drugs. I am 58 years old. I don't know what people are talking about when they say they had a rush because they were on drugs.
They were stoned.
I've had 3 beers since I was born. I didn't like the taste of it as a teenager. But to go in the Bible and find a scientific word that they're all saying, they're all debating that God is an old man who died in a rocking chair in the 60s, it's just so absurd because here we are in this highly scientific age and there isn't anything that I can't take out of science and go in this book and find to stir up people's interest. I've taken the molecular weight of the vitamins and amino acids. They're right in the correct chapter. How deep do you want me to get on day 1?
Well, let me just throw this out in my feeble brain, and that is now I'm wondering the connection when people used to stay, they don't use it so much now, but they did in the 60s and 70s, somebody got stoned, which means they're basically, smoking grass, and that's a downer. And so lithium is also, I guess you would call it an antidepressant drug that obviously takes people who are a little bit radical and dumbs them down.
Well, lithium is the standard treatment from psychiatrists and so forth for what major disorder, tell me?
Well, I'm thinking would it be depression, I guess?
Well, it's bipolar, which used to be called manic depression.
Up and down, right, okay.
So you have to go study what a bipolar person does, and they swing from extremes.
Right.
They'll be laughing one minute, next, and when they swing across their neutral center, they can become very volatile. And so the psychiatrist will, of course, give them a near-fatal dose. That's how much lithium they give them. You can obtain your daily amount of lithium just by making sure you eat a lot of fresh green foods. It's in the source that God wants you to have it, in every leaf on every tree. It'll also be in the waters. But in Revelation 3, if anyone would like to go read what the present condition is of the church that we live in today, which is the Laodicean church, they're not hot, they're not cold. You want to know what they are, Keith? They're bipolar. This is chapter 3. This is the lithium chapter. Thou art rich, increases with goods, and knoweth not that thou art poor. The church condition of so-called professing Christianity is in a bipolar manic depressive state. That's a side note.
Yeah. I mean, it does make sense now that lithium, if it were something that were a downer, if you will, it would have to be given to somebody who obviously has high swings, which you have just mentioned. That makes sense now, bipolar.
But listen, we have over 100 other elements. Can you imagine what's in these chapters, where they're at? What about the radioactive elements? Watch, I'm going to change it again. Once everything is done by the numbers in order, all you have to do is take the spreadsheets and overlay them. You can overlay them any way you want to, as long as you keep things in order. Off the top of your head, do you know how many books are in the Bible?
I got them all in front of me, but no, I can't. I didn't add them up. Oh, wait, 60. That's right. I thought you meant chapters.
66.
66, correct.
The old 27 and 2.
Right.
You can take the first 66 elements, and guess what? These books, the whole books revolve around each element in order. Well, everybody seems to be interested in in book 66 because everyone's looking to see if Bible prophecy is about to fulfill and is war about to mount in the Mideast and so forth and so on. The problem with people today who even discuss the Bible is the problem that has always been around, Keith. They only know generalities. Notice we're beginning on this program to discuss details. And I'm only keeping thousands of facts of details away lest we go too fast, too quick, and we drown people.
Well, we're not going to embark on anything too much newer because obviously we're looking at only about 3 minutes left. What I'm going to ask you on the air is that if it's okay, when we do hang up, I just want to give you a ring back. I have an idea that I want to run by you off air.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, and then now, since we do have so little time, why not once again you give out how people can access information which supports what we're talking about today?
The best place to start is where we originally began discussing, where we began what we call the infinity code by switching Hebrew letters to numbers, getting a sum, and going to the chapters to see if they were there to prove there is an absolute mathematical design to the Bible. All you have to do is go to www.google.com. When you're there, pick the video selection. That's the first move you'll make once you arrive there. Then you will be presented, of course, with the search engine. Just punch in the name Neal, A-L-N-E-A-L, and up will come 4 things that have been presented to Google and okayed by them in the past 2 weeks. One is a 13-minute clip on this video code. There's also 2 50-minute clips. And someone in Japan that we have never met said they thought this needs to be out to the world. They have only been up a week. There's only about 200 hits on the mind control and just a few dozen hits on the infinity code. Go and watch that. If you're very interested and you're really sincere, you can email me personally. Our emails are looked at 3 times a day. That's ONEMRA, the @ AOL.com. One Mr. A at AOL.com.
All right, and I'll tell you what. At this point, we'll call it a day. You'll be back on tomorrow to pick this up. And as I said, if it's okay, as soon as I get done with some post-production things here, I'd like to give you a ring and just run something by you.
Okay, that's fine. Enjoyed the interview and talk to you soon.
All right, thanks so much, Al. God bless. Bye-bye.